Caitlin Clark, trying to dodge the media after a win versus Italy, decided to drag her face across the all the logos because by the looks of things, I don't know if she wanted to ask any questions, but it seems like she decided to drag her face across a bunch of logos, which is kind of wild to think about, isn't it? It is kind of wild. But if you're seeing here, obviously, hiding like to avoid the interview, she pulled a 21 Savage, according to Van Shea here. 21 Savage walking past the media, basically hugging the wall. In fairness, Caitlin.
Most athletes usually pose for photos, give polished answers, and follow the expected routine. Caitlin Clark, however, chose to press her face against a sponsor board instead of facing reporters after the Italy game. Considering all the attention and pressure the media has directed at her, it may be one of the most relatable reactions ever seen in professional sports. The internet quickly erupted with strong reactions. Share your thoughts below. After everything Caitlin Clark has experienced with the media, do you think her avoidance is justified, or should she interact with them more? Let us know your honest opinion. Now, let's properly set the scene.
Who will present her with this prestigious TCL? Your first impression after your victory.
Team USA had just wrapped up the Italy game, and the players were making their way through the mixed zone, the post-game area where reporters attempt to catch them for brief interviews, quick quotes, and immediate reactions. It's a normal part of professional sports. Most athletes pass through, pause to answer a few questions, offer some polite and forgettable remarks, and then continue on. It's a routine that everyone involved in the sport recognizes and follows. Caitlin Clark, however, handled the moment differently.
Hugging the wall. In fairness, Caitlin has her face against the wall. 10,000 likes. Her putting her face against the wall. She was walking past their comms guys who was trying to grab players, talk to the press. She was not interested. Yeah. I'd say she was probably like...
Instead of walking through the mixed zone and risking being pulled into a post-game interview, Clark appeared to choose a completely different approach, pressing her face against the sponsor board lining the wall and sliding along its full length to slip past the media without being stopped. This was not a quick sidestep or a casual head-down walk, but a full commitment, her face against the board as she moved with the same focus and determination she usually brings to the court, avoiding every journalist in that area with intent. The moment spread instantly, as a tweet capturing it racked up millions of views within hours, with reactions ranging from laughter to genuine admiration for the effort. One comparison even likened it to 21 Savage moving past people by hugging the wall, and it landed because the level of commitment felt identical. Once the decision is made not to stop, there is no stopping, and the method becomes whatever it takes. And the reality is, given the media's history with Caitlin Clark, this kind of response is not just understandable, it feels earned, because the media did not reach this point by accident. They didn't stumble into this situation by accident. They constructed it piece by piece over 2 years of coverage that has ranged from questionable decisions to moments that were outright embarrassing. And now they are facing the natural outcome of that pattern. A player who has no desire to offer them anything beyond what is strictly required by contract. And at times not even that. Start with the player of the game decision, because it directly explains why Clark has little to no enthusiasm for post-game media responsibilities. In the opening game of this FIBA qualifying tournament, the award was given to Rhyne Howard instead of Caitlin Clark, and while no one is questioning Howard's talent, work ethic, or the fact that she had a solid performance, the actual numbers tell a different story. Clark ended that game with 12 more assists than Howard, while Howard scored just 4 more points, and more than half of those points came directly from plays created and assisted by Clark. So the player who generated the offense, controlled the flow, and was directly responsible for more than half of the top scorer's output still did not receive the Player of the Game award that ultimately went to the scorer. That is not a marginal decision that barely missed the mark. It is one that required deliberately overlooking the most influential presence on the court. And the fact that it happened in the very first game of the tournament made the message obvious from the start. The recognition was not going to align with actual performance. It was going to reflect whatever internal reasoning the decision-makers were following. Caitlin Clark, clearly paying attention, seemed to read that signal correctly and adjusted her level of interest in media interactions accordingly. The missed high-five moment from the Puerto Rico game also deserves attention because it highlights just how intensely the media monitors everything she does. She missed a high five, not on purpose, not to make any kind of statement. She simply missed it. It was the kind of moment that happens constantly in any fast-paced game, where players are moving quickly and timing just does not line up. Yet somehow that brief miscue turned into a viral story. It was clipped, shared, and picked apart, with people debating whether it signaled tension, chemistry issues, or something deeper, all over a simple missed high five. That alone shows the level of scrutiny she deals with every single day, where every small action, every expression, and every interaction, whether positive or negative, is turned into content by a media ecosystem that has realized Caitlin Clark drives engagement no matter the context. And the reality is, not all of that coverage has been fair, accurate, or even grounded in truth. Just look back at how her first professional season was covered, from the overly physical plays that went unflagged, to hits that drew no calls, to moments where other players were given the benefit of the doubt while she was not. The media response to all of that ranged from inconsistent to outright misleading, with some outlets framing situations in ways that clearly aimed to spark controversy rather than deliver honest analysis, while others downplayed what was happening on the court to protect narratives that had little to do with basketball.
Caitlin Clark doing her best. Chelsea Gray and
She is no longer offering press conference moments that can be clipped and taken out of context, nor is she supplying quotes that can be reshaped into something they were never meant to be. And she is certainly not handing over material for the next storyline that has little to do with basketball. Instead, she gave them the sponsor board and kept moving. And that is not pettiness, that is control. It reflects a very specific kind of power, one that exists because Caitlin Clark has built a large enough platform, a loyal enough fan base, and a strong enough commercial presence that she does not rely on traditional media the way most players still do. The audience that follows her is not depending on outlets that have been critical of her to stay informed. They are watching her games themselves, following her directly, and forming their own views based on what they actually see rather than narratives being handed to them. That dynamic, a superstar athlete who has effectively bypassed the traditional media channels that once served as the only bridge between players and fans, is what gives the sponsor board moment far more weight than it might initially appear. It isn't just amusing, it's a statement. The media simply doesn't hold the same influence over Caitlin Clark that it does over most players, and moments like this make that reality unmistakably clear. The reactions of her teammates in that image add an extra layer of entertainment. Both Angel Reese and Paige Buchers are visible, and the expressions on their faces as Clark presses herself against the wall and slides past the media capture a reaction that can't be staged. Pure, genuine confusion. The "what is she doing?" energy that comes from watching a teammate take an unexpected action in full public view. Rhee and Clark have certainly had their complex moments during this tournament. The Puerto Rico game, particularly the ball handling incident, has been the most dissected moment. But in that sponsor board instance, the focus shifted to a shared experience, watching Caitlin Clark apparently decide that the sponsor board was preferable company. The dynamic between Clark and Angel Reese has been one of the most analyzed storylines throughout this entire qualifying campaign. Setting aside the social media chatter, the reality is that these are two highly competitive professionals who respect each other's abilities without being close friends, a perfectly normal dynamic in team sports. Not everyone on a team has to be best friends. They just need to function effectively together. When it clicks, it looks like the cohesive and dominant performance against New Zealand. When it falters, it resembles the Puerto Rico game, which is best left unexamined. But in this moment, both watching Clark hug the sponsor board to avoid interviews, it became a shared absurd experience that can actually strengthen team bonds. Any tension lingering in that mixed zone likely dissolved instantly at the sight of her pressed-up face against the logos, because shared laughter at something genuinely funny has that power. That said, the broader question of whether consistently avoiding the media is sustainable still deserves a brief look. The media has always been an integral part of professional sports, serving important roles, connecting athletes with fans, providing context for performances, and shaping the public narrative around both players and the game itself. No athlete benefits long-term from maintaining an entirely adversarial relationship with every outlet covering them. That said, there's a clear distinction between having an overall media strategy and feeling obligated to stop and engage with every single journalist in the mixed zone after each game of a qualifying tournament. Caitlin Clark is not refusing all media access, nor is she imposing a blanket blackout on every interview request. Instead, she is making deliberate, moment-by-moment decisions about which interactions are worth her time and which are not. The sponsor board episode was just one instance in a very specific context, and reading it as a sweeping declaration of total media war would be a serious exaggeration. What this really represents is a player who knows exactly where her responsibilities to the media end. She meets her contractual duties. She seizes authentic opportunities to say something meaningful. But when the post-game mixed zone ambush comes, after a match where the Player of the Game award went to someone else despite the clear stats, that called for the sponsor board approach. The clip went viral instantly, gathering tens of thousands of likes before anyone even finished writing the caption. After years of being misrepresented and subjected to unfair narratives, you eventually stop providing the media with the material they want. Caitlin Clark pressed her face against the sponsor board, and the internet responded with millions of views. If you think that was the right move, hit like, subscribe for more, and leave your thoughts in the comments below.